Hello. In the basement of a house on Long Island, USA, sat an iron trunk weighing hundreds of pounds. The house containing this trunk had passed through the hands of many owners, yet for 30 years the iron trunk remained unopened. Finally, one fine day, a man, driven by curiosity, opened the iron trunk to investigate, and so a terrifying secret hidden for 30 years was revealed. Our story takes place in 1999 in New York State, USA. New York, located in the northeastern United States, is one of the country's most economically developed states. This story unfolds on Long Island, an island southeast of New York City. In Nassau County, Long Island, lived a homeowner named Cohen who had resided in the town for 9 years. One day in 1999, Cohen decided to move. While packing, he stumbled upon the iron trunk, something he would never forget. Let us now turn back the clock to September 2nd, 1999. September 2nd, 1999. It was a Thursday. Cohen, a homeowner preparing to move, had cleared out unnecessary belongings so the new owners could move in at any time. Early that morning, Cohen hired movers and had a truck brought to his residence. They efficiently moved furniture and boxes, large and small, along with discarded items out of the house. However, the move hit a snag. One of the movers discovered a large iron trunk in the basement. Its surface was rusted and any markings were obscured, suggesting it had been there for years. The mover tried to lift the trunk, but despite his best efforts, it wouldn't budge. He called for help, and 2 other movers came to assist. With considerable effort, the 3 of them managed to move the heavy trunk from the basement to the front yard. One of them told Cohen, "This trunk is incredibly heavy. We can't get it onto the truck. We've brought it this far, you'll have to figure out what to do with it." Seeing the trunk, Cohen suddenly remembered it had been in the basement when he moved in 9 years prior. He had considered getting rid of it then, but it was too heavy to move, so he had left it there all these years. Now, Cohen's curiosity was piqued. He wanted to know what could possibly be inside to make it so heavy. He found a crowbar and returned to the front yard to pry open the trunk. As he pried the lid open, a foul odor overwhelmed him, nearly knocking him back. He glimpsed something dark inside. Driven by curiosity, he braved the stench and peered inside again. He saw a shoe and a human hand. Terrified, he stumbled back and ran inside to call the police. Soon, the police arrived on the scene. They immediately set up a barricade around the trunk to keep back the growing crowd of curious onlookers. The trunk's discovery had shattered the town's tranquility. The police suspected the trunk contained a body. Wanting to preserve any evidence, they carefully transported the entire trunk to the lab. The trunk had a capacity of 55 gallons, approximately 208 liters, and weighed 160 kilograms. It took lab technicians nearly 3 hours to carefully remove all the contents from the iron trunk. Inside was the body of a woman. She was fully clothed, but her style was outdated, reminiscent of fashions from decades past. The trunk also contained numerous small spherical black and white plastic beads and a green liquid. The liquid was later identified as a dye, and everything inside the trunk was submerged in it. A handbag was found containing a makeup compact, a comb, and an eyelash curler. Also found were an address book, 2 metal rings, one engraved with MHR, and a metal pendant inscribed with "To Patrice, Love Uncle Phil." Among these items, the address book was deemed the most crucial. If they could decipher its contents, the police believed they had a strong chance of identifying the woman in the trunk. However, the address book, soaked for years in the liquid, was so soft a pen could pierce it, making it nearly impossible to decipher. The autopsy revealed the victim was pregnant, carrying a full-term 9-month-old fetus. The cause of death was determined to be multiple blunt force trauma to the back of the head. Investigators began trying to identify the victim. They searched missing persons reports across New York State for a petite Hispanic woman, approximately 150 centimeters tall. However, these criteria were too broad. Far too many missing person cases matched the description. The police adjusted their investigation, focusing on the evidence found inside the trunk. The trunk's serial number and the name of a chemical company were still legible. Police traveled to the chemical plant in New Jersey. Using the serial number, they determined the trunk had been manufactured 34 years earlier, in 1965, and was originally used to store dye. A representative at the plant stated that the specific dye had been discontinued in 1971. Simultaneously, the police questioned Cohen about the trunk's origins. He explained that he had found it in the basement when he moved into the house 9 years earlier, in 1990. He had tried to move it, but couldn't. Though curious, the chemical markings on the trunk dissuaded him from opening it. Cohen appeared calm and truthful, leading the police to rule him out as a suspect. Investigations revealed the house had had 4 owners. Through contacting previous owners, the police confirmed the trunk had belonged to the first owner, who lived there in the 1960s. His name was Howard B. Elkins, now retired and living in Florida. Police interviewed elderly neighbors who remembered the original owner. They described Elkins as a business owner who ran a plastics company in Manhattan. The word plastics immediately caught the investigators' attention, recalling the numerous plastic beads found in the trunk. And Elkins, the original homeowner, owned a plastics company. Could there be a connection? Following this lead, the police discovered Elkins had been a shareholder in a company that primarily manufactured plastic flowers, grass, and decorations in the 1960s. They also learned that the plastics company had purchased a batch of dye from the New Jersey plant during that period to color their artificial plants and other decorative products. News of the woman found in the trunk spread rapidly through the media. Shortly thereafter, the police received an anonymous tip. The caller claimed to know some secrets about the trunk, confirming it was used for chemicals. While the caller didn't know the woman's identity, they stated that Howard Elkins, a shareholder in the plastics company, had been romantically involved with the woman at the factory in the 1960s. This coincided with the police's current line of investigation, strengthening their suspicions. Based on the accumulating evidence, the police decided to interview Elkins. Now 70 years old and retired, Elkins no longer lived in New York but had resided in Florida for a considerable time. When Elkins saw the police, he was uncooperative, but reluctantly invited them in. The police showed him a picture and asked, "Did your factory ever use dye drums like this one?" Elkins replied, "My factory never used any drums like that." The police pressed further, "Did you ever use green dye in your factory?" Elkins insisted his factory never used any dyes. They had no need for chemicals. They knew from their prior investigation that Elkins' statements contradicted their findings about his company. It was clear Elkins was lying. His denials only strengthened the police's suspicion that he was their man. The police continued, "Have you ever had an extramarital affair?" Elkins admitted to an affair, but claimed it had ended over 30 years ago. He said so much time had passed that he couldn't even remember what the woman looked like. The police then placed a DNA collection kit on the table. DNA technology was well established by then and had become a valuable tool in criminal investigations. Obtaining Elkins' DNA would determine if he was the father of the fetus. "Would you be willing to provide us with a DNA sample?" they asked. Elkins stood up, indignant at the request, and asked the police to leave. Back at the lab, work continued on the evidence retrieved from the trunk. After painstaking efforts, crime lab technicians partially restored the address book, revealing the name Mr. Elkins, clearly written on the second line of one page. Following the name were an address and phone number, but attempts to contact anyone at that number were unsuccessful. On another page, they found the name Kathy Andrade and a phone number. The police contacted the number and, thankfully, reached Kathy. The police explained the situation, and Kathy immediately identified the pregnant woman in the trunk as Reina Angelica Marican. She explained that Reina was from El Salvador. Over 30 years ago, Kathy had been an English teacher at a language school, and Reina had been her student. Being the same age, they had become close friends. In 1966, at the age of 26, Reina had traveled alone from El Salvador to New York. She rented a local apartment and lived on her own. It wasn't long before she found work at a plastic flower company in Manhattan. Raina had a wonderful personality and always sought her parents' advice back home before making any decisions. She loved New York and dreamed of becoming a U.S. citizen. Kathy revealed that before Raina disappeared, she had confided in her about being pregnant, but hadn't disclosed the father's identity. Kathy only knew he was married with 3 children. "Will he marry you?" Kathy had asked. "Of course," Raina had replied. Kathy recounted a distressing phone call from Raina. Raina had discovered the man had no intention of marrying her. Distraught and unsure what to do, she called the man's house. Unfortunately, his wife answered. Raina confessed the affair and her pregnancy. After the call, the man phoned Raina back, furious and threatening to kill her. Terrified and confused, Raina called Kathy for support. Deeply concerned, Kathy rushed to Raina's apartment. The door was unlocked. She searched frantically but found no sign of Raina. Kathy waited for 3 hours, desperately trying to contact her friend, but to no avail. She then reported Raina missing to the police. Fearing for Raina's reputation, Kathy didn't mention the threatening phone call to the police. They assumed Raina had simply gone shopping or run an errand. The case remained unsolved for over 30 years. After hearing Kathy's account, the police believed Elkins, the plastics company shareholder, was Raina's secret lover. They theorized that Elkins lured Raina to the factory that night and attacked her. He then transported her body to his home. It was speculated that Elkins intended to dispose of the body at sea, placing Raina in the iron dye drum to ensure it would sink. He filled the drum with various materials, mostly plastic products from his company. After sealing the drum, he realized his miscalculation. At 160 kilograms, it was far too heavy for him to move alone, let alone load onto a boat. In desperation, he hid the trunk in the basement, where it remained undisturbed for 30 years. Had Cohen not been curious enough to open it, the secret might never have been revealed. Based on this reasoning, the police considered Elkins their prime suspect and obtained a warrant for his DNA. When the police arrived at Elkins' home to obtain the sample, his wife reported him missing. Elkins was later found dead in a neighbor's garage, sitting in the back seat of his car with a gunshot wound and a gun beside him. The police ruled it a suicide. The police obtained a DNA sample from Elkins' body. The results confirmed a 99.93% probability that he was the father of the fetus. This corroborated the police's theory, bringing the truth to light. However, with Elkins deceased, the full details of the case would never be known. Reporter Oscar Corral covered the story for Newsday after the truth emerged. He also traveled to El Salvador, searching for Raina's family. He eventually located her mother, then 95 years old. Upon hearing the news of her daughter's fate after 30 years, Raina's mother wept. Her greatest wish had been to see her daughter again. Raina had paid the ultimate price for her involvement in a tragic love triangle. On the last page of the address book, a poignant message, believed to be written by Raina to Elkins, captured her helplessness and despair. "Don't be mad, I told the truth."